Okay, well, I fell in love with photography in high school, and during that time, one of the Air Force recruiters came through with all the different careers, and they said that there was a trade called photography, and they had a school of photography. So when I was 17, I joined the Royal Canadian Air Force in 1953. I went to St. John for my basic. I went to Uplands, Ottawa for contact training, and it was a good thing I did, because there I learned how to do some ground photography with speed graphics and this sort of thing. I went to Borden for my course, Recce 6, in 1954, and I was transferred to Calgary, and I ended up being the only photographer on the base. And so what I'd learned on contact training was more valuable to me than the aerial photography stuff that I had learned. I eventually got transferred over to Two Wing France, where I worked on CF-100s with cameras, the cine cameras, initially the AN-N6 and then the N9. And I went to Sardinia then quite a number of times with them. I got transferred down to Comox, where then we were working, of course, with the PTV-7s with 407 Squadron, and anti-submarine stuff, and with cameras and big flashes there. Then I got transferred in 1962 to Victoria with 5 Air Division headquarters and BC Area Public Relations. So that was my first foray into public relations, and I spent the better part of the next 15 years doing public relations. And of course that involved a whole bunch of other transfers as well, including 2 transfers over to Vancouver, which is, I was underneath the Burrard Bridge where the Maritime Museum is now, just a lovely transfer. And then I went, from there, I went to Cyprus. I came back from Cyprus. When I went to Cyprus, this was prior to integration, and so it was 1967, and we were covering both Cyprus and the Gaza Strip in Egypt for public relation purposes, so we were traveling back and forth, and we were in the Gaza Strip when the order came to pull out and get out of there, which we did. And then I was one of the last 8 Canadians to fly out of there to Beirut, and the war started about a week and a half after that, the 6-day war. I then came back to Vancouver. Then I was transferred to NDHQ in Ottawa in public relations. And then I got transferred over to Baden-Baden in Germany for my second tour. I had, as I say, a tour in France initially, and this was my second NATO tour. And I was there for 3 years with my family, which was a great tour. From there, I got transferred back, and in Edmonton, I again went to Cyprus when the Turks invaded in 1974. I went with the Airborne Regiment and went down there. So we did a lot of stuff in PR, including I did the snowbirds photography for 2 years. That would be for a couple of weeks each year for 2 years. And I think the big reason I got invited back wasn't because I was necessarily a great photographer, but because I didn't get airsick. And so that was really neat. In about 1977, I got an invitation to go to the Edmonton Journal. They had a position become available. And so I got my release after 24 years in the Air Force, and I started then as the chief photographer at the Edmonton Journal, where I did another 20 years. Did a lot of neat stuff, including going to the North Pole with the Air Force, but as a civilian this time, and landed on the ice and did some neat stuff. And both careers were just so rewarding for me. I just can't believe how fortunate I was and how enjoyable my time in the military was. And I love photography. I still do. I've been retired now for 14 years from the Edmonton Journal, and I still take lots and lots of pictures. It's just a love of mine, and I credit the Royal Canadian Air Force for getting me started in it all those many years ago.